back is straight. And we just bring our mind to neutral. Come in from the outside. And just come in and in. And count your breath to 10. And if you get distracted, then start over. So that means exhale and inhale counts as 1. Exhale and inhale counts as 2. Like that. And it's okay if you have to start many times. Last week we talked about the marriage of karma and emptiness. And so for this meditation, think about something that you ate today. And think about it within the context of karma and emptiness. So if you had a sip of some very hot and perfect cup of coffee, and where did that come from? say some prayers. I have 3 copies of the prayer that we do at the beginning. Are you familiar with it? I don't know if you who needs it. Some people have gotten it already. Do you? No. Are you okay? You can...
Mandala and Refuge?
Yes. Okay. So first one is Mandala offering.
Buki Juxing Metok Tram Rira Lingshi Nindeg Padi Sangye Shindu Mikte Uwagi Drokun Namdak Shingla Triparsho Iram Guru Ratna Mandala Kandeyatayami Sangye Chiram Soki Choknamba Changshu Bardu Dakni Yapsuchi Daki Chinyen Kipe Sunamki Joroa Penchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Churang Soki Choknamla Chanchu Bardu Daki Kapsuchi Daki Chinyen Gipe Sunamki Drola Penchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Churang Soki Choknamla Chanchu Bardu Dakni Yapsuchi Daki Chinyen Gipe Sunamki Drola Penchir Sangye Truparsho.
So this is ACI 1, and it's class number 11, which is the review class, which is the last class of ACI 1, which is an introduction to 3 principal paths. So I don't, the first part of this course, Michael Dunn taught. And then I've been doing the second part of it, and then we were going to come together and review it together. But he had to have surgery, and I don't know what for, but he really wanted to come, but he's getting general anesthesia, and he, you know, the doctors felt it was better he didn't try to teach. So he really wanted to come, but he couldn't. So, so we'll do what we can. So I don't know. So I don't know if the both of you were in the class at the beginning. No, you weren't. Okay, okay. And are you familiar with this particular ACI?
I've done this class a couple times.
You've done. Okay, okay, good. And are you familiar with it? It's okay. It's just so I know, you know. So it's gonna, some of the stuff is gonna sound like you don't have a place to fit it into. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about it. Just absorb, you know, whatever, and then you can take the course at some point if something appeals to you.
Sure.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. So it's basically a review, but there's a couple of new things. So what I thought to do is just read the book that we've been using for this course is this one. And I thought I would read you the second to the last verse, because the verses are sort of, I don't know if all of them are, but sometimes they feel very incomprehensible. So it's kind of nice in a way to, like, you know, read this, hear this incomprehensible thing, and then try to make sense of it. So, and they're verses from Tsongkhapa, and the book itself is a teaching from Pabunga Rinpoche based on these verses. So we just keep getting, you know, we have the original verses and then commentary, and then you just keep needing explanations of it. So this is the verse 13 out of 14. In addition, the appearance prevents the existence extreme, emptiness that of non-existence. And if you see how emptiness shows in cause and effect, you'll never be stolen off by extreme views. So there's an appropriate silence, because it's, you know, a little bit hard to get what exactly is being said here. But to talk about this, we're going to use a line from the root text on wisdom by Arya Nagarjuna. And that, let's see. So what that verse is, I wrote it in Tibetan, not the verse, the line from Arya Nagarjuna. And then we're just going to go over it word by word. We did this last week. So it's sort of like a roundabout way to getting at an understanding of the verse. So the first, Gangla, let me read it to you first, and then if you repeat it, there's a tradition of it planting a seed in your mind, and you'll start becoming interested in Tibetan, and you'll start wanting to study it. And it really does seem to work that way somehow, but strangely enough. So this is Gangla Tongpa Ni, Rungwa Dela, Tamshe Rungwa Gyur. You can see that. So can you repeat after me? Gangla Tongpa Ni, Rungwa Dela, Tamshe Rungwa Gyur. Okay. The Gangla means, Gang is whatever, La is for, and it is for whatever. For whatever. Tongpa Ni, anybody know Tongpa Ni? Tongpa Ni is emptiness. That's Tibetan for emptiness. And anybody know the Sanskrit for emptiness?
Shunya, is it shunya or shunyata?
Shunyata, yeah. So Tongpa Ni, emptiness, shunyata. Rungwa means it means right or appropriate. Right or appropriate. Dela means for that thing. For that thing. Tamshe means everything. And Rungwa Gyur is right. So you read Tibetan from backwards, as far as from what we know, right? In English. So what it means is, for whatever thing that emptiness is right, then for that thing anything else is right. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So for whatever thing emptiness is right, appearances is right, or anything else is right.
So that's for whatever thing, emptiness is right.
Then for that thing, anything else is right.
Okay.
And that's in the book on page 133. And what it says in the book is everything is right for anything for which the state of emptiness is right. Okay, so so there's a mistaken view that thinks that if things are empty, that they can't work. If something is empty, they can't work. So emptiness is there's not anything that has any nature from its own side. That's what emptiness means. That there's not anything that has that quality from its own side. That's emptiness. And so what we're talking about here is we're talking about emptiness, and we're talking about everything else that appears to us in this room. The people, the things, ourselves, everything else, all of everything that we encounter. So that's what we're talking about here, is those two ideas. I mean, we've had like two classes talking about karma and emptiness, but just to, give you some flavor of what that is. So if, for example, so a mistaken view is that if things are empty, right? So if we're saying something is empty, it doesn't have any quality from its own side, then it can't work. So if we say the pen is empty, which is what we're saying, this thing is empty from its own side, then, well, if you're saying something is empty, then it can't work. This is a mistaken view. And so if you also think that, we're talking about pens, but we're talking about everything else as well. So we're talking about words. So if words are empty, then they can't communicate, is this mistaken view. So it's somebody's trying to say, look, if things, if you're saying that things don't have any nature from their own side, if you're saying this is not really a pen from its own side, then it can't really write. And so it must be a pen from its own side if it writes. But we're saying, okay, it's empty. That's one of its realities, right? We talked about the two truths, the two realities, and one of the realities is ultimate reality, is that this is empty, and that the other reality of it is how it appears to us. So what we're talking about now is this mistaken view that says if things are empty, then they can't work. And if words are empty, they can't instruct. And this is a mistaken view. And Arya Nagarjuna says it's the opposite of that. And Arya Nagarjuna says because things are empty, they can work. So because words are empty, they can communicate. Because the pen is empty, it can function as a pen for you. So how do we know that? How can we think about that? Because we use the example of the pen because it's very helpful because of the dog. The dog who sees this can't cognize it as a pen and can't write with it. It doesn't function that way for a dog. So the point is that this being a pen comes from you because of your karma, and the meaning of words comes from you. That's also your karma. So, and that is because they're empty. If they so if you can hear some words, and if you can, what we've been talking about in this class is that if you can hear these ideas of renunciation and bodhicitta, and then do good deeds, and cultivate a practice, then you can get to nirvana, because the words are empty, and it's because of your karma that you hear something that can that makes sense to you in a certain way, and that can bring you out of suffering. So yeah, there's a story of this attendant of the Buddha. His name was Lekhar, and I think he was a servant of the Buddha for like 12 years or something, and he said, you know, I don't see anything special about the Buddha. I don't see anything special about this guy. He's just a regular guy. He has a kind of halo around him, but other than that, he doesn't seem to have any other special qualities. So the Buddha doesn't have any self-existent quality of being that way from his own side. It takes somebody's karma to see someone like the Buddha and be able to recognize the quality of this person, what this person has to, what this person had to teach to them. So, so if things are not empty, they could never change. And it's because things are empty that that we can change, and that we can get to nirvana. We can get out of suffering. So it's not that it's not that this pen is empty but it works. It's that, but rather it's that the things work because they are empty. And so if things are empty, because of my karma, I can then have a situation that is an unpleasant situation, for example, with someone, and that situation can change. I can, I can have, that person can then seem pleasant to me, and then ultimately that person can seem like a deity to me, and I will be in a world where I'm surrounded by holy beings, and that's what a Buddha in a Buddha paradise is experiencing. And that's because things are empty, and because they're empty, they can change. If things were solidly from their own side, what they were appearing to us, they could never change. And so that's, I mean, that becomes especially important when we're dealing with difficult people in our lives, and trying to figure out how do I deal with this? What's going to happen? Is anything going to change? And so, how would it change? How would that work? How could you make it change?
Be compassionate.
Yeah, be compassionate, and then. But what's the step before that? What would be the step before that? So if you have somebody who's
Can you use my example? Like, I emailed you what happened. Can you use that? Like, I don't want to hear your analysis of that situation.
Well, why don't you tell me what you think? You use it
Okay,
and tell
so
me what you think.
I was walking my sister's dog yesterday, and he peed on a man's pants, and the man was very angry and told me that I should slap the dog. And I was very upset, like really hurt. But I felt bad of what happened. I was really sorry about it. But like, the dog didn't know that they were his new pants. The dog didn't intentionally like want to ruin his day. He just, like, he was on a walk. He was doing what dogs do, and
So what's the emptiness of that?
the emptiness is that,
Well, what's the using the emptiness and the karma of that? Since we're saying that there's a marriage of karma and emptiness,
Yeah.
and both of those things are at play, what happened in that situation?
so it's empty because the man is empty, but I saw his anger because I've probably done something in my life that made someone that angry, and then it's karma. That's karma. But I'm forced to see him as an angry person because of that situation and because of my karma. Like, he's probably a great guy, right? But he was very upset about his new pants, and like, I ruined his day. Like, yeah.
And so I think that the thing about that situation is that the emptiness of it is that there's maybe somebody in that group, because you described other people there. There's maybe somebody who doesn't, who he has bugged them, and
Yeah, and they were laughing about it. Like,
oh, okay.
And they were happy that, like.
Okay, all right. Oh, so you had very seriously a demonstration
It
of
was
the
so
different.
crazy. I broke down crying after. I never would like cry about something because it's actually kind of funny that the dog peed on his pants. Like, but I was so upset. Yeah.
Well, I think so. So the thing is, the man's perceiving it in a certain way. I mean, you're not totally sure how he's perceiving it, but it sounds like he was not unhappy with it. And so from his side, what his karma was, is, I mean, for starters, we can't really judge what other people's karma is. That's a real danger. We can't, we don't really know. We don't know what that is, but he has one experience of it. He's experiencing it one way, and then the women were experiencing it another way. Like, they're funny, he's been obnoxious to them, and now somebody's peeing on his pants, and this is, there is a God, and then you had your experience.
Mostly because of the slapping.
Right, and which was, so and so what was then coming up for each person, because the whole thing is empty. It doesn't have any nature from its own side, or everyone would be perceiving it the same way.
So it was just nothing. Like, it was just.
Well, no, everybody's bringing something different to it, which is their karma.
Okay.
And then each person is forced, like the guy he's being forced to by his karma to be unhappy about the dog, and And the women who are laughing, they're forced to have that experience from they're having a positive experience. The man's having a negative experience. You sounded like you were having a negative experience.
I was
And so, but then each person is coming from it from a different way, but it's based on something different that they did. And one of the things we didn't bring up in class and that I wanted to talk about is this idea of virtue, and how what's good karma and what's bad karma, and it's all virtue is something that produces a pleasant result for you, and non-virtue is something that produces an unpleasant result for you. So it's not like it's thinking of not so much as good and bad in a certain way, but what's going to in the end produce a pleasant or a positive result for you. That's a good karma. So although the women are laughing at him, and maybe that's not very nice for him, because maybe would like a little sympathy, and they're not being compassionate towards him, but they're enjoying themselves. They're having a pleasant experience. They're having a pleasant experience because they did something good in the past, somewhere in the past, to have that pleasant experience. He's having an unpleasant experience. He did, we're assuming we understand what's happening in his head. We don't really know. We don't know who anybody is. We have no idea who anybody is. None of us know, which is really a very beautiful thing, because we can all be. We don't know who we're being surrounded with, and everyone is everyone is a Buddha around us, and they're putting us in some situation to bring us up another level, and yeah. So that's it. So I just wanted to say about the virtue, and that the how to think about virtue in that way, because we didn't bring that up in the other class. Let's see. So I don't know. Is that
Yeah, like also when it happened, I like that sucks. Like those are his pants. Like, and I had only $20 on me because I was just gonna go buy food. And then I was thinking about just giving it to him. Until he said slap the dog. But like I don't know, like if I should have given it to him anyway, because I didn't end up buying food.
Well, I think the one thing, and it comes up in later courses on Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Master Shantideva. He says, and I think it's a really helpful thing to remember, is that that we should, the Bodhisattvas, they have these stories of they're giving their eyes and to someone who needs it, and I mean, to give your eye to someone who needs it is sort of a big deal, and not something that is easy to do. So he says that how we should start with what we give is with giving like vegetables. So he's saying give what we can give without regret. I mean, the minute, so if you have $20, but that's what's going to be buying all of your, your food, and that's your last $20, maybe you could give the $20, but if you had 1 second of regret after it, it would ruin giving that $20. So, you know, you give what you could give. Maybe you could give $1. Whatever you can give without regret, then you do that. I mean, and then, you know, then we're in the game of upping the ante slightly, you know, so if you can give $1 and then you can, you know, you feel like, okay, I'm pushing it by making it $1.25, then, you know, but it has that flavor of just, okay, this is what I can give without feeling any regret. And I, you know,
I regretted not giving it to him
Right.
though,
Right,
because
right.
I like that wasn't my last $20, and then I didn't end up buying food anyway because I went into the coffee shop next to the place where it happened. They were like, "No dogs in here." I'm like, and I was like, he's like, "You can leave the dog outside and come back." And I was like, "Nope, I'm done with interacting with people. I'm going to the park and sitting down," and like I just broke down crying. Like I couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. So I like regret not giving it to him because like. Could have been for dry cleaning, I guess, but whatever.
But it's okay. So you take whatever that is and you know, think about, you know, it for next time, and it's okay, you know.
I'm over it.
So I don't know what. Does anybody have any feeling about this marriage of karma and emptiness? It seems okay, good. I mean, for people who are hearing this for the first time, it's, you know, coming out of nowhere. But I mean, we've been talking about a couple of classes, so.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I'm actually a teacher up in the Bronx, and I think this resonates very much so with me
Mm-hmm.
because I have a lot of students who send a lot of anger towards me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So in the beginning, my reaction was to have a stronger force back towards them, to kind of like put theirs down. But over time, it's kind of become just like, let all that stuff come out of them and I don't have to respond to it. So that, when you say like an emptiness, that's kind of what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think thinking about understanding about karma and emptiness, and you know, these courses. I don't know if you're familiar with the ACI courses. There's a total of 18 of them, with 11 classes per course. So what we did in this first one is basically just do the bones of, you know, the principal teachings of Buddhism. They're just the bones. And so in the next, you know, the rest of the courses will flesh out all of that. So that is to say that it's there's a lot to it and hard to get to catch what the essence of it is immediately. But I think the thing that you're talking about, how it helps in different situations, is if somebody is being angry, if you're experiencing anger from someone, then within the framework of karma and emptiness, you're understanding they're empty and you're empty. Everything's empty. Nothing has any nature from its own side. It's not. There's no self-existent quality. So those people who are being angry, they maybe go out to the bar and they're hanging out with each other and having a good time and not being angry at all, right? But and you know, not experiencing anger in other parts of their life. So how it's helpful is that, okay, if they're empty and if I'm empty also, if everything's empty, then but I'm experiencing something. So we're not saying nothing exists, because that anger is real, right? But it is to say within this framework is that I am being forced to experience anger coming at me from someone because I did something similar in the past. And so you have to study the laws of karma. Like, the karma means like produces like. So you can't do something bad and expect to get something good. Good produces good. Karma grows, meaning you do a small good thing, you get a great big good thing. And then there's two other, laws of karma also. So you have to, in order to have something happen, you have to do the cause. And if you don't want something to happen, then you have to not do the cause for it. So then once you're experiencing somebody in front of you being angry, then within this framework you're thinking, if that's coming from me, if all this is true and it's coming from me, then what did I do, even as a tiny, tiny little thing, that would produce that? And so it helps in the sense that in that moment, instead of getting angry back, you don't get angry back, because if anger is coming at you, it's because you put it out in some way before. And so that's why it's coming to you. And I mean, we're talking about, could be countless lives ago. And so it's helpful, because then you're not thinking this is coming from that person.
Right.
This is coming from me. I don't want to see it. I need to change, for starters, how I respond to it. And then the second part is, sometimes in that situation, you're faced with this situation and you say, oh, all of these people, I'm experiencing this anger, but I'm not an angry person. I don't think I ever do that. And then what you have to do is really analyze your behavior then, and then think, well, what's the smallest possible way that I might be angry? Like, maybe it has to do with a slight impatience that the subway was late, or a slight irritability at something. And so then, because you can have these things and think, I'm not like that, why is this happening? But then you just have to, in analyzing yourself, just keep going deeper and try to find where that, any hint of that. And so that's to apply to everything. The positive things that happen and the negative thing is, where did that thing come from? It came from me. And that's because that thing is empty, and I'm forced to have experienced it the way I do because of my karma, because of what I've done in the past. And that's how those two work.
I think one of the questions that I have about karma is how to not fall into the trap of blaming yourself if a bad thing happens.
Well, I mean, when you say blame yourself, what's the flavor of that? Like beating yourself up?
Yeah, in either of these examples, so like, the dog peed on the guy's pants because Lulu did something wrong, or the kids yell at you because you did something wrong, when really it may have nothing to do with them, but it was just, an accident, or these kids have had difficult lives and they're taking it out on somebody, right? And it's not anything that they did. And so how do you say, okay, I'm experiencing the anger because I've probably felt anger in the past, and I should realize it's actually empty. And so if I'm generating anger to feel that, that's coming from me. But at the same time, I feel like it's hard to not fall into the trap of blaming yourself in a way.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe it's a point of not using the word blame so much. I mean, if those ideas seem acceptable to you, like that things are empty and that they don't have a nature from its own side, and that connection of karma, then we are creating the world around us. But does that mean that we should beat ourselves up and you know, have, you know, self-hatred? I don't think it means that. I think it means that what you need to do is I mean, it is blame in a certain sense, and I'm trying to dance around that because, you know, because it has a negative connotation, but in a sense, we have to take responsibility for the world that we're seeing around us within the context of this understanding. At the same time, you know, we're trying to, you know, we're trying to figure out how to get out of this suffering existence. Why do we have the sufferings that we have, and what do we need to do to change that, and that it can change.
So after I was upset and crying, I went straight to the park. It's like a few blocks away. It was like a nice field, and like, I sat. I did a round on my mala, and like it was fine. Like I kind of understood why the situation had to happen, and like I didn't necessarily blame myself because I did something wrong in the past. I just thought about like if I ever made someone feel like that deeply upset or like that deeply uncomfortable, and like made them cry as hard as I did. Because you don't think about that stuff. You don't think, like, you think about how you're crying and how you're upset and how like the world is crashing down around you, but then you think about it, like you don't think about sometimes about if you ever made someone feel that way. So then I kind of just like accepted it and made peace with it. And like the dog was just being a dog and sitting next to me. Like he wasn't like, oh no, I peed on a guy's pants. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it just like kind of worked out because of this class and like my practice.
I don't know if you feel
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
well, you should think about it a lot. And then just play with it as an idea, because then it gives you something to it's a way to change your world if it makes sense.
Yeah.
If things aren't fixed.
Can I say one other thing?
Hmm?
Can I just say one other thing? So I think I have that same tendency to blame myself, you know, when I'm experiencing these things. Like, what did I do to cause them to react this way? But I also do take into account they have this whole other life and this whole other experience that I don't really know about. And I try to get to know them better in other situations, or even imagine where they're coming from, and then put myself into their shoes and say, if I were them, how would I want this person to respond to me? You know, and then that, like, I treat them as I would want to be treated in that situation, so I no longer blame myself. You know, it's like they're just another version of me in a different situation. And then,
and I think that the thing is, like, there's lots of kind of, and Master Shanti David talks about this, like different tricks for you know, like how to, you know, like having that kind of understanding towards them, having that in your mind helps you to respond in a certain way. And so then that ends up being very helpful, and then that creates for you very positive seeds, because then you're not responding with anger, which is what you had said you were originally
Initially,
responding with. But ultimately what he says is that until we can learn where things are really coming from, then we won't be able to really change them. And it does have to do with what seeing that it's coming from you, you know, and yeah. Let's see. So what we have is that emptiness proves karma, and karma proves emptiness. Both of those things work together, and that's the marriage of karma and emptiness, and that each one of them proves the other. That karma proves emptiness, and emptiness proves karma. So, can anyone describe what I mean by that? Somebody want to take a wild guess?
Can I use a cheat sheet?
What?
Can I use a cheat sheet? There's like a homework question, right? It was a homework question.
Oh, it is?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Like how they coexist.
Yeah, how do the two things work together? How does one prove the other?
So, is karma the projection of how you're forced to see something that's empty?
Well, one thing, emptiness is a negative, and then appearances or karma is a positive.
Okay. So they're like a molecule in a sense, or an atom or something?
There's a what?
Are they like an atom or something? Like, I don't know. Just forget it. I can't explain this.
I remember two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I remember though. I'm trying to figure out why we said that, but I remember us saying that.
So what is emptiness? From what you...
Emptiness would be ultimate reality, right? So the
Use the pen.
unchanging reality.
Use your pen. Tell me about it in regards to the pen.
You know, it has parts, it has a name, it has labels. And so in our world we call it a pen so that we can communicate, but you know, to a dog it's not a pen. So its ultimate reality can't be that it's a pen if not everything and everyone thinks it's a pen. So that's what I understand emptiness. And then karma, I guess I don't quite understand this as well.
Well, you have the karma to cognize that as a pen, and that's because you had the karma to be a human. The karma to be a human versus like the karma to be a dog is completely different. And it's better to have the karma to be a human because we have a much better chance of getting to Buddhahood than a dog, because we can you know, analyze and think and then do the kinds of deeds that we can do to force ourselves to be in a reality that is a Buddha paradise, because things don't have any way of being from their own side.
So maybe the more you realize emptiness and the more karma you apply to your life and to everything around you, the more you could perceive emptiness, and then the closer you could get to Buddhahood.
It's absolutely like that. It's absolutely like that. I mean, you're hitting on the 6 perfections, which comes in a later course. They're, you know, like the first perfection is the perfection of giving, and the last perfection is the perfection of wisdom. Wisdom meaning an understanding of emptiness, and you give a little bit, but that giving a little bit is a kind of virtue that that helps you to understand emptiness better. And if you understand emptiness better, then the nature of your giving, the understanding of your giving, is facilitated, and it becomes a circular thing. So I don't know if that's what you were saying, but that's like, that's, I don't know what course number that is, but that's, you know, yeah.
Is there a direct example from like the Buddha himself of this, like emptiness and karma? Like, did he ever give like a story or a teaching?
Oh, okay, yes, the Heart Sutra. You're totally like, this is just total setup. In the Heart Sutra, the Buddha said form is emptiness, emptiness form. And that's exactly what it is. So that's, I mean, and the whole Heart Sutra is like that. It's that kind of language. It's very pithy, and it's basically saying the same thing over and over. But it is mentioned in this book from the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, emptiness form, and that's karma and karma and emptiness. So when we say form, we're talking form, appearance, karma, the positive. The pen is positive. And emptiness is a negative. And so that's how those two, you hear many words for that. The pen being an appearance or a form. The world around us, everything around us is form in this sense. So let's take a break, and then we'll continue. I have